it's really frustrating as a fan, and I can't even imagine how it feels as these players, where it's like we were one play away again in one of these big games where we had an opportunity to pull it off, and we just could not get the ball to bounce our way. This was the best game that Grunk has played, and I think he looked his best. I think he looked the most comfortable. He started pushing the football down the field, and we saw the version of Nick Singleton that we haven't seen since last year. Hi, everyone. Welcome back to another episode of The Road to Happy Valley. I'm your host, Noah Malone. So today's episode, I want to kind of go over the last three games and provide somewhat of an update to the head coaching search as we begin to step into November, and hopefully we get that figured out by the end of the month and we have a new head coach by December, but I'll get to that towards the end. So for starters, just want to go over these last three games. I will start off with this. It sucks. It's really frustrating to be at a point in the season where you go in with all these expectations of Big Ten championship, college football playoff, potential national championship, and to be sitting here with a handful of losses it's tough. It makes you appreciate the good years, the years where you have 10 wins, 11 wins, you're playing in bowl games, you're playing in college football playoff. It really puts things in perspective and makes you appreciate the successful years. But yeah, this year has been brutal to say the least. But the last three games, 25-24 loss to Iowa at Kinnick, 38-14 loss to Ohio State at the Shoe, and then most recently 27-24 loss this past Saturday to Indiana at Beaver Stadium. Yeah, it's tough. But the thing that I try to remember is that when you have a backup quarterback and you're going through this period where you moved on from your head coach, your starting quarterback gets injured, you kind of have to modify your expectations. And that's kind of what I was talking about earlier, where we come into the season with all these high expectations and all those things are out the door. Now it's, okay, where do I go now? What do I look for in this team on a week-to-week basis? And that's not always easy. I think that now, for me, expectations were to make a bowl game, and I don't think that they can do that at this point. So that part of it stinks. But I think the only other thing that I could have thought of leading into this stretch of three games was, and it stinks to have to say this, but just basically playing spoiler, try to ruin someone's season, hand somebody a loss that they might not have expected, but ultimately just be as competitive as possible and show some pride, show some fight, which I think that they've done that. I think that they have, I think that Terry Smith, and he deserves a lot of credit, I think that he's done a great job of getting these guys to fight for him, to battle, to keep pushing through this season, in a season where things just have not gone their way. I think that he's done a great job. So I think he deserves credit and recognition for that. Now, the on-field product the last three games hasn't been as great, but I think that something to look at is that Grunk has looked better each game, right? So that first game against Iowa, I think that he looked like a backup quarterback playing against a team that it's extremely difficult to play at. Playing against Iowa, playing at Iowa is never easy, no matter who you have out there on the field. I know that the one game that is stuck in my head is the last second touchdown when Trace McSorley was the quarterback, the touchdown pass to Juwan Johnson. And that game was just a battle. And it came down to the wire, and we were clearly the better team, still pulled it out, but it's just a tough place to play. And for a guy like Grunk to get his first start there, first meaningful start there is a really tough ask. And I mean, I think that he handled it about as good as he could have, looking back on it. But just not a ton of production from him in that game at the quarterback position. But I didn't really expect a whole lot. So diving into the stats a little bit of it, it seems like when Drew Aller went down, the focus was, all right, we're gonna run the football. We're just gonna try and be ground and pound. We're gonna get the ball to Katron Allen as much as possible. And the next stretch of games, it's been very clear that that's been the case. At Iowa, he had 28 carries for 145 yards and 2 touchdowns. We couldn't throw for 100 yards, but again, I'm not really holding that against Grunk in his first start like that. And then on to Ohio State. This was a game where Penn State hung around in the first half, but ultimately were just mismatched and overpowered. Ohio State, they're a great football team, coached extremely well, great talent on both sides of the football. And this was just a Penn State team where we struggle to beat them in games where we are fully healthy and we have our best players out on the field. The expectation going into a game like this has to be similar to what I said earlier, where can you go out there? Can you battle? Can you fight? Can you keep it close? And they did that in the first half, but again, that Ohio State team is just really good, and they ultimately just flexed their muscles on Penn State in the second half and took over that game. So it is what it is. That happens. I don't really think many people expected an upset in that one. I think a lot of people were in my shoes, where we just want to go out there and be competitive at this point. And if we can hang around, great. If not, it is part of what we're going through right now. And then this weekend against Indiana. Now, this game was this Penn State team this weekend against Indiana looked like they were playing with some juice. They were playing with a lot of it almost feels like they realized, like, hey, we don't have anything to lose at this point. Let's just go out there. Let's fly around. Let's get after the quarterback. Let's make some plays and see what happens. And we were right there. I think that this was the best game that Grunk has played, and I think he looked his best. I think he looked the most comfortable. He started pushing the football down the field, and we saw the version of Nick Singleton that we haven't seen since last year. And I think that is a big part of why we were able to hang around in this football game. He had 10 carries for 71 yards and 2 touchdowns. One of the things that Coach Smith was preaching on the entire week leading up to this game was getting the vertical passing game in order. And I don't know if it was just a combination of play calling, lack of separation, or what exactly was going on. But the first half of that game, you didn't really feel like they were it didn't really seem like they were trying to push the football down the field. But I don't know what happened in the second half. Somebody had a halftime speech or what, but they took the training wheels off and they let Grunk throw the football down the field. And I think it looked significantly better. They were pushing the football down the field to Trevor Pena. He had a pretty good game. brought us back into this football game. It just seemed like the play calling switched and things started to click in that second half for this offense. And we saw how it panned out. Those 2 touchdowns for Nick Singleton, he ripped off a long run, which again, that version of Nick Singleton we have not seen since last year. So that was really refreshing. Ultimately, though, we know how this one panned out. Credit to Indiana. Credit to Mendoza. I mean, he was making throw after throw. He had those guys, tight ends, wideouts, were just making some of the most ridiculous catches throughout this game in the second half, basically. And one of them was the play of the year at this point. That catch to take the lead late in the fourth quarter to pretty much seal the deal for them was incredible. It was a great play, and you just got to tip your hat. But I want to say that the most like frustrating part about this whole thing of just being a Penn State fan, and I know that a lot of people feel the same way, is it feels like Penn State has not gotten a ball to bounce their way in one of these big games since 2016 when they beat Ohio State and when they won the Big Ten championship. It feels like, I know that a football game is never fully defined by one play, but it feels like every time that they end up in one of these games, if one play bounces differently, it feels like Penn State ends up winning. And it's really frustrating as a fan. And I can't even imagine how it feels as these players, where it's like, we were one play away again in one of these big games where we had an opportunity to pull it off and we just could not get the ball to bounce our way. And I will say too, when they got the ball with the lead late in the fourth quarter, right before they punted to give Indiana the ball back before they went on that drive, I think that this has been a consistent thing too in Penn State play calling in these big games, where they almost play too conservative when they have the lead and aren't playing to win, but are playing to lose. As I was watching this game, I was talking to one of my friends, and he said, I know what's going to happen here. They're going to run the football 3 times. They're going to punt it away. Indiana's going to drive down the field and score. And it just feels like that is the reoccurring theme here in these big games, in these big scenarios where they're playing not to lose. And I know that running the football is the bread and butter of this team, but I think that there's a way to go about play calling in a game like this where you can be aggressive, but also stick to what you're good at. And it just feels like time and time again, this team is so close. They're playing not to lose. They make a comeback. They take the lead at a point, but just can never seal the deal. And I think some of that has to do with the play calling and just not being aggressive enough to want to just put the nail in the coffin. And I think that that's really important too, because you can't have guys that are coaching scared. And I don't necessarily think it's coaching scared. I think it's just I don't know what it is. I don't know what it is. I can't figure it out. But I hope that whoever is next in the head coaching spot or offensive coordinator, whatever it is, has a fire, has a tenacity about them where they want to almost beat you by 50, right? I feel like we haven't really had that in a while. And that's one of the things that I'm hoping for in this next head coach or next play caller, whatever it is I want somebody that comes out there and just wants to beat the crap out of you. And I think somebody with that mindset will be very helpful in scenarios like this, where it's like, hey, we're going to win this football game. We're going to execute on these plays. We're going to get a first down, and that's going to be that. We're going to pull this upset off, and we're going to look back at the season as it didn't start great, but we had a fork in the road decision and we got aggressive and it paid off. And it sent things on an upward trajectory. Now, I think that they can still be on an upward trajectory. They've got a lot of work to do throughout the rest of the season, and with this coaching decision. But I just want to see them be more aggressive from an offensive perspective. It's a lot to ask your defense, who played really well. I thought they played really well to get a stop. I know that it might not be might not be right, but as an offense, I feel like that's your job to seal the deal right there, get a first down, and don't put your defense in a spot where they have to get a stop like that. I put this one back on the offense. I think that the defense has bailed this team out for years, and I think that at some point we have to look at the offense and say, all right, you guys have to be the ones to make a play here. And so I'm not putting this one on the defense. That's a really good Indiana team. That's a really good quarterback in Fernando Mendoza. They're really well coached. Not really a whole lot to say. Hell of a drive to go down the field. They made some great plays. Just got to tip your cap to it. Lastly, I also want to shout out the fans and everybody that was there. I saw a couple pictures on Twitter leading up to the game, like an hour before. The stadium looked pretty empty. And by kickoff, it was as if this team was undefeated. So I'm really proud of that. I'm really proud of the fact that even in a time like this where we're not playing great football and we're not getting 10 wins and all the positive stuff about Penn State football that we're used to, I'm really proud of the people that are still hanging around and still showing up, because it'd be really easy to jump ship at a time like this where had all the expectations in the world of this team, and they didn't meet those expectations. New coach, a lot of uncertainty as to what the future could look like. But I'm really proud of those guys and everybody that showed up to the game and continued to support Penn State. I know that the players probably appreciate it too, the coaching staff. And it just goes to show how great this fan base is and how much they truly care about football and how much they want to win. I think that it's really important that that they get the recognition for that as well. So shout out to you guys. Next, coaching search update. So there's a lot of rumors and things going on Twitter and whatnot that I've been seeing. The list that I shared with you guys as to who I wanted pretty much only has one or two candidates on it at this point. I think Hartline and maybe Manny Diaz are in considerations for it. I know that Duke did just lose, and they haven't really been great. So I could see a world where he might not be as high up on the totem pole for the next head coach as some of these other guys. But I haven't really heard anything else about Joe Brady, Kenny Dillingham, or Will Stein, and feel pretty confident ruling those guys out fully. So some other names that are being tossed around, which is exciting. Eli Drinkowitz, Missouri head coach. Alex Golish, the South Florida head coach. Jeff Brom, Louisville head coach. Brent Key, the Georgia Tech head coach. Clark Lee, Vanderbilt head coach. And Mike Elko, the Texas A&M head coach. I've been seeing a lot about those names kind of being tossed around, some more so than others, but those are the main six plus Hartline from pretty much what I've been seeing. Oh, Bob Chesney as well from James Madison. His name has been tossed in there every now and then, but that's pretty much the extended list of what I've been seeing. But my thoughts on the timeline for the next head coach still remain the same. I think they're going to want to have this position filled before December starts, which does make it difficult for some of those guys on the list that I just named. So this is being filmed on Sunday. The college football rankings will come out next week. So some of these rankings are subject to change. But Texas A&M, Mike Elko, that was one of the names that's being thrown around. They're a top 5 team in the country, and I realistically don't think that he's going to leave this Texas A&M team where they have they're going to make the college football playoff and have a shot at competing for a national championship. I would be absolutely shocked if he left Texas A&M to become the Penn State head coach at this point as things stand. They're undefeated. I think they're number 3 in the country. One of the best teams in the nation. So that's a tough situation to leave if you're Mike Elko. Clark Lee from Vanderbilt is another one that's in a similar scenario where Vanderbilt is ranked 16th in the country. They're just outside of the college football playoff, and they do have 2 winnable games left on their schedule. I will say I don't really want another Vanderbilt head coach. I would like to maybe start fresh from that perspective. But I do think that he's a good coach. I think that Diego Pavia is a really solid quarterback, which I think helps his case. But at the end of the day, the success that he has had at Vanderbilt this season is inevitable, and they're right on the brink of potentially being a college football playoff team. So keep an eye out on that. Another one is Brent Key at Georgia Tech. They're currently ranked 17th, and they do have a legitimate shot at winning the ACC. They have a game at Georgia at the end of the year, which obviously won't be easy, but that really won't play any effect into the ACC rankings and where they stand. There was word going around that he did interview for this job during their bye week, but a more recent report came out that they're looking at an extension for him at Georgia Tech. Not really sure on that, but just keep that in mind as well. All in all, I think that we'll have a much clearer picture of this head coaching search over the next few weeks. Once we have a better idea as to who's winning and who's losing, it's not really that clear right now. It really feels like the favorite or whoever is going to be a next head coach, it feels like that information is changing every day. Every time that I look somewhere, it's, oh, this person's the favorite now. Oh, this person's the favorite now. So I try to just almost take all of those with a grain of salt, but still keep an eye out for the names that are being associated with the jobs too, because I don't think that names are just going to be thrown out there willy-nilly. So just something to consider. But what I will leave you guys all with is, it seems very evident that this athletic department is being very thorough on whoever this next head coach is going to be. And it seems like they're extremely focused on finding the right guy. And I do believe that they will. I have full trust in them, that they'll get the right guy, that they won't rush through this process just because they want to have somebody by a certain date. When I say that I think that that's the timeline, that's just what I'm thinking. That is not, and that's based off of transfer portal and where some of the teams will be at that point in the season. It is where I came up with the December 1st time frame. So that doesn't by any means mean that they'll have a coach after or they'll have a coach sooner. But I think that makes the most sense as far as recruiting, transfer portal, etc. Because whoever that guy is going to have to hit the ground running right away. And it makes it more difficult when you're a team that's competing for a college football playoff to jump ship and step over to a new university, step into that new head coaching role. If your season's done, you only have to play in a bowl game, not the college football playoff. That does make things a little bit easier. We have seen coaches do that in the past where they have gone to a new position or a new job and an interim coach or coordinator of sorts has taken over for a bowl game. And that's not out of the ordinary. So enjoy it. Just keep an eye as this goes along. Try to enjoy it. I think I know for me personally, I just want this to be done so then we have a clear picture of the future, right? I know that we haven't had the success that we'd hoped for this season. So at this point, it does sort of feel like we're just looking for a positive note. But I trust this athletic department. I think they're going to find the right guy. It'll just be a journey until we get there. So hang on, enjoy it. But that'll do it for today's episode. We are.